coastline of Northumberland is ruggedly wild and beautiful. Prone to harsh winters and turbulent seas, it has an equally diverse and vivid past, and if you close your eyes for a few seconds and allow the atmosphere of the place to absorb your soul, it isn't difficult to conjure up what effects past lives have had on this place. My favourite place to stand in the whole wide world is the beach at Bamburgh. A huge, sprawling beach with outcrops of rock, it is home to a medieval castle where it stands proud, almost as if it is floating, somewhere in between the beach and the land. It can look both awe-inspiring and daunting and hauntingly beautiful at the same time. In 634, when King Oswald became king, Aidan was selected to work with him to bring Christianity to England after several other attempts had failed. The roar of the sea is a constant in your ears here, and the wind dashes across your face, blowing away the cobwebs you never knew existed, yet, as the tide ebbs out, rivulets are made in the sand that draw your attention with the finger-like undulating strands they make when the sun sets. A golden light pervades, streaking the landscape with a glow that mutes into creams and blues, which is both mesmerising and striking in its complexity. Aidan will have witnessed this rugged beauty, and will have no doubt been inspired by its foray as he chose to make Lindisfarne his place of refuge. Christianity, it cannot be doubted, has had a huge impact on these shores, so much so that it becomes impossible not to think of the two together, such was their influence. Under Aidan's initial and direct supervision, unsurpassed religious texts were created here. Prayers were a constant, life was simple, austere, unforgiving, and yet fascinating, and filled with a passion for the landscape and for the faith, so that the entities become almost immutable. And so grew an obsession of mine when I discovered these texts, these illuminated gospels at an early age, the forest floors that were knee-deep in pine, the constant rush of the sea, the pebble-laden streams, the village way of life, and the exploration of the all-important faith. I needed to know what went by during this time. I felt a desire to capture the landscape, to reflect that knowledge, and I realised that I had an academic yearning to understand my faith more. I am honoured and humbled to think that for a second my life and my experiences would be, even fleetingly, entwined with Aidan's. The Footsteps of St Aidan's exhibition. Descriptions of the photographs. The open door. The blossoming of the golden age of Northumberland is a cross-fertilisation of Celtic and Anglo-Saxon arts, hearts and minds. The meeting of Celtic culture with that of our invaders enriches our land, and it was the arrival of Aidan who made all of this possible. Keeping the door open to others gives us the opportunity to learn from them, to walk in their shoes and to share in their experience. Otherwise, we may remain closed to the pathway of God's intentions for us. The ebb and flow of tide. In Aidan's teachings, he followed St Columba and the doctrine and strict disciplines of Irish monasticism. The basic principles of this order, as set out by Columbus, can be rediscovered in the titles given to each photograph. Aidan shows us that his life is one of absolute dedication, diplomacy and trust. He knows what to do and when to act by listening to God's decree and following a strict, obedient monastic way of life. The miracle of the storm. In a turbulent landscape, confusion abounds, and Aidan on his journey from Iona to Bamburgh over the Scottish borders will have experienced doubt and consternation regarding his pending appointment with the king. Could he change what Coleman had failed to succeed in? Did he follow the path guided by the king? Faith and belief in God's intention for him and the reciting of psalms would have carried him onwards. What route would you have followed? Anchoritism, the path that leads us on. When one is in need of a spiritual solace, retiring to a lonely spot for private contemplation to be with God can be the right thing to do. A journey with God. At sunset, on a sun-drenched beach, a child is held in the arms of a parent, nurturing and protecting the infant, holding him very close. A powerful image of protection and beauty. The parent looks out to sea towards Lindisfarne, meditating on the future for himself and for his child, in preparation to carry out his message of hope to the busy world beyond. This image is an emotive response to the prayer of St. Aidan. Seeking the right relationship. Sometimes our relationship with God is tested. Things do not go according to our plan, and we feel that there is little we can do to change it. St. Aidan teaches us that by making a pilgrimage to a godly place, we can find peace and answer his call. The Mediator. Aidan was at very least a mediator, and at the best the most humble of bishops and spiritual advisor to the king. The poles in this photograph represent his commute to consult with the king and the austerity of the Northumberland coast, its treacherous conditions, and the sacrifices that Aidan must have made to fulfil his promises to God. The impossibility of perfection. We all strive for the impossible in our relationships, in our careers, in our perceptions, hopes and dreams. Seeking out the right relationship allows God to see our imperfections, and he sees us and loves us still. Aidan knew this only too well, so it was his humility and compassion that enabled him to carry out his duties with faith and grace. Hope. Faith is a journey. Live simply and praise him wherever you may travel, and however far that journey takes you, trust in it and in God's will. One cannot help but wonder what texts and images gave Aidan this kind of hope. His reading list of the day must have been extensive, as monks were internationally renowned for their zest in academic pursuit and religious fervour. New horizons. Travelling on to new horizons can be a daunting prospect for us all. A symbolic approach to this composition depicts the swaying motion of the sea that gently rocks the boat. There is a translucency on the horizon that fades into the skyline and merges with the landscape. A small bird sits far right of the composition, demonstrating both the plight of the bird, the enormity of the situation, and the otherworldly calm of the sea. The simple Breton pair comes to mind. Protect me, O Lord, for my boat is so small and your ocean so wide. Remember the connection to the life of Jesus. In answer to God's call. In answering God's call to serve the King and bring Christianity to the shores of England, Aidan must have felt daunted by the prospect of visiting Oswald for the first time. In contemplation of this image, do we hear God calling to us? What would we do to hear his call? In finding lasting peace. Finding peace can be visually depicted in so many ways, and it is different for everyone. In tracing the footsteps of St. Aidan, I have discovered a sense of peace that has taken me on an ultimately fulfilling journey. I believe that the simpler things in life would have pleased Aidan, enjoying the aesthetics of the visual in the religious texts, for example, and in reciting the psalms he was known to sing on his travels. In a moment of private reflection, what brings you peace? His lasting legacy. St. Aidan clearly left a profound and lasting impression on all those he met and whose lives he has touched over the centuries. This journey of mine, depicting the footsteps of St. Aidan, is one I am delighted to share with you, and one that I am equally humbled by. St. Hild, who was an avid pupil of Aidan, founded the abbey at Whitby. This photograph depicts a Celtic cross with the sea and the city in the distance. It is a poignant reminder of how far-reaching St. Aidan travelled. In discovering what it has meant to me to walk in his footsteps, my fervent prayer and wish is that it brings you the same.